Katie with Next Shift, and this is going to be a video that is a bit less tightly edited and more just kind of going over and loosely discussing some goalie movement and tech, as well as explaining some of the thought and inputs, etc. behind it to demystify some of the advanced goaltending things. And before we get into specific tech, I wanted to just bring up a kind of analogy that I like to use for goaltending, is kind of comparing it to being fluent in a language where, starting out you learn more basic words and phrases and you can get through a basic conversation, but through getting more comfortable with a language, for example, and just learning more tricks for memorization and fluency, you can discuss, more complex ideas and be more creative with what you do, as well as taking less time to respond to something. And I really see that in, the mechanics of playing goalie, where if you know the basic movement, you can keep the puck from going in the net a good amount, but the more you learn about the movement, the more you get comfortable and the more you can kind of improvise in different situations to be more tactful and more efficient with what you do. And that really becomes extremely useful the higher level you're playing at, where you're playing against, skaters that are doing the same thing on their end of the ice, of learning more mind games, learning better passes, learning better shots, and you just have to do what you can to keep up. So the first little bit of movement tech I want to go over is the tap dash. There might be another name for it, but it's just what I've ended up calling it. There's a few different quirks to it, but essentially if you kind of tap, crouch, and then dash right away and then let go of crouch, it lets you do the standing dash, which doesn't slide you too much. It keeps you standing, which gives you that option to move forward and backward without committing too much. And it's just like a very useful tool I've found to track the play a little bit when you're not committed to being a butterfly yet. It's a little less committal than a dash. It's the closest thing that I've found to like a little micro dash. You can also do a very similar thing where you dash from butterfly and then you stand up right away. And standing to cancel that momentum is very useful. It's also good for giving yourself some height to stop some shots that scoop up a little bit higher. I will also note that if you hold down your stop key while doing this, you will continue to glide a little bit, which isn't always useful, but is a cool little fun fact. And in a similar vein to the tap dash is the diagonal jump, which is admittedly a bit more niche. I don't find myself doing it too much, but it is one thing where I feel like practicing it teaches you a little bit more about kind of the background happenings of goalie movement. Every now and then it is nice. You just get like a high shot up to one of your diagonals. It's nice, but essentially what you're doing in quick succession is you're starting from butterfly, and while still in butterfly, you tap your dash button, and as soon as you do that, you release your crouch button to get out of butterfly and press the jump button in kind of a smooth motion. It takes a little while to get the muscle memory of it, but once you do, it's pretty reliable, and it's just like a nice little tool. I just love practicing it. I feel like it helps me work on my timings, as well as just being a nice little backup plan in case you really got to get to a puck that's kind of high and kind of to the side. And again, it's one of those pieces of tech where you probably won't use it too often, but at the same time, if you ask like almost any goalie that has a lot of hours and a lot of high level experience, they can probably just do it on a whim because they've practiced all this different movement. This next one is a little bit more practical, and it's less a movement tech and more just a movement option to make you aware of, which is sometimes if you're in a predicament, depending on where the puck bounces, or if a skater wraps around in a certain way and you're caught out of position, it can be pretty useful to essentially be backwards in your own net. And what you end up doing a lot is following the play as it goes around, and it gives you a lot of leverage on getting your stick on the puck when it wraps back around the other side, where instead of trying to kind of like rip your stick back or like reach back in time, your stick is doing its like main like right to left motion if you're right-handed, or the opposite if you're left-handed, and it gives you a lot of power to swing behind it and knock the puck. There's also a little feature of the game where your stick will reach through the net a little bit past the, collision. So if the puck ends up being kind of on the edge of your net, like touching the side of your net when somebody's scooping it around, you can, in theory, stick your stick out and it will interfere with that. This one you won't do too often, but the more you kind of get familiar with it and know it as an option, you will find moments where you realize that it's actually maybe a little bit more helpful to spin around and follow the play instead of just facing forwards. And this is a more general one, but I want to talk quickly about kind of body post interactions as well as the crossbar, where a lot of the time what your main focus is going to be on is knowing your position relative to your goalposts. So that's, that tells you what you want to be covering, what's open, and some physicality and ways to kind of keep in tune with where your goal is kind of dashing back across or to the side of it. If you're kind of hugging your net, if you dash into the post, it'll give you a little forwards push. If you're trying to cover a wrap around you, you can kind of dash across alongside the net. And the more you explore it, the more you'll see these little quirks of ways that kind of as you are in tune with where your net is in relation to your body, there are a few tools that open up to you for positioning options. There's also things like tiger stance, where if you're kind of pushed back into your crease and then you jump from butterfly, it will propel you forwards. And it's kind of like small influences on your movement a lot of the time, so it's just going to take a lot of exploring and trying things out, but it is something that factors into your movement, and the more you can get it down kind of consciously in practice means that in games, when it ends up being a useful tool for you, you can just kind of go right into it and bounce around a little bit and use your net to your advantage instead of it feeling like an obstacle in your way. And a really quick addendum is that this is a fantastic tool for covering near side shots, where even if you're kind of already hugging your post, you can kind of shake your body over a little bit and bump into the net. If you time it properly, it'll get your body even closer to cover those near side shots. And in a similar realm to just staying close to the post and knowing where they are, there's a few different things to keep track of when you're watching the puck wrap around behind your net. Especially there's specific things that you can do when it's your teammate that's wrapping around behind. I personally think it's a best practice to follow the puck around and keep your pads at like the very corner of the net and hold your stick in so that you're not cutting off your teammate, but you are covering in case it gets bumped out or they accidentally tap it towards the net. And it's just little things like this that if you can find consistent ways to do these best practices, it just makes your gameplay a little bit more consistent and more helpful overall. There's a lot more to cover. The last one that I'm going to cover for this video is the tech for instant pad drops, which again isn't always useful. You're not going to have it as your go-to, but it will help you in a pinch. And again, it's good to know, and it's these little quirks that will get you just more familiar with movement in general. And essentially what it is if you are standing up and you're holding one of your pad extend buttons, usually Q or E are the typical binds for that. If you go into butterfly while already holding one of them, it will drop the pad down instantly. So you'll see here, I'm just doing it with the individual pads, and you can also do it with both pads at once. And if you time it right, if you just hold the extends for long enough, just after you crouch and then let go of them, you essentially are doing an instant drop down in the butterfly instead of that slower animation for dropping that you get from just pressing your crouch button. And sometimes when the puck's coming straight towards your 5-hole pretty fast, it is nice to know this and kind of have it as a muscle memory to just reflexively try and get those pads down right away. And there's definitely a lot that I'm leaving out. I'm planning on covering more in the future, as well as more kind of game sense things outside of just mechanics, but I hope that this is helpful for right now, and good luck with your goaltending.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.